Alright, so this video is going to be talking about how to put handlebars, much like these guys right over here, onto your Suzuki Katana. Now, this video is specifically for people with this setup, with the kind of fake clip-ons and this molded piece of metal here. I know that there is another format with actual clip-ons and bolts up here that you can much more easily stick this into. So first step is to remove all of that. I assume you're all capable of doing that if you're watching a how-to video like this. Now once you do that, you notice that there are 4 rubber grommet thingies in here. And they're kind of symmetrical. Here, if you take them out, what you'll find is they're set up like this with a little rod in between so that you can only crush them so far into these concave holes. Now, my first attempt to do this, or to attach the handlebars, was to simply drill these out, take the middle piece out, and then stick bar mounts on here like this. Unfortunately, even tightened down all the way past what is probably safe for the rubber to keep it in shape. They're too wobbly. So what I've done instead is devise a system to attach it both here and here with the use of these pieces of steel, which will go between them both above and below. Once I've got this on here, basically the metal of the triple tree here will be in between here, and this will be the setup. This will go on to there, with this piece being top and this piece here being on the bottom. I'm using jam nuts on this one here because I don't want to have to rely on the torque I put on this rubber to hold it in place. I don't want to have to torque down the rubber to such an extent that I break it. I want to be able to go to the torque I want and then lock the nut in place. Over here it's not as important because there's that metal rod to prevent it, which is what that bolt's going through. Whereas this one here, this is the bar mount you can see here, because this tube is not wide enough for the bar mounts that I have here, which are Outlaw 7/8 bar mounts. I think they're about $30 if you're interested. Alright, so now as you can see, I have bolted these on. They're not tight or anything, they're still loose. I'll need to put the handlebars on here so that way they're in the right orientation when I tighten them down, and to give me something to hold on to. So we got the main bolts running through here. You can see where it comes out the bottom, right there. And then over here we got it coming out. And hopefully, I mean, it's already stiffer than the last time I did this. Having just, that extra mounting point's already got it stiffened up pretty good. So I'll tighten them up. Alright, so we now have the bars tightened up. And unlike before, I know I didn't film it, but before there was a lot of wiggle room. Now there isn't. The bars are quite solidly attached to the triple tree. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but it isn't rubber mounted, so you can't expect it to be like a solid mounted bar. It's also nice that, the engine on this bike puts out a lot of vibrations at high RPM, and having rubber mounted bars, especially Renthal bars, which are supposed to be vibration dampening to an extent, should result in less vibrations to me and to my hands, and will give me a much more upright riding position, as you can see here. For those curious, these are specifically Renthal's Road Low handlebars. There's a ultra low, low, medium, and high, and this seemed about right for my application. They were about $60. The Outlaw bar mounts were approximately $30, but the biggest expense is going to be getting the new brake lines, because these will not reach. That's as far as the stock brake line will go. So I'll of course have to remeasure and have some new brake lines made for it. Well, I was going to have a whole new system made with stainless, but you could just replace the brake line, the top brake line here, up to where it splits. You could probably do that cheaply for probably around $30. Alright, so our next problem is going to be lengthening, well not really lengthening, but we need to reroute these cables, and unfortunately both the electronic stuff that goes to this as well as the throttle cables are difficult to disconnect. So what I'm going to do is, if you trace this guy back, you get to these two cables. One of these is for your left controls and one is for your right controls. And so what I'm going to do is disconnect those and move them, or disconnect them so that I can reroute this behind the forks here. Because if we have the cables, which as you can see here go behind the forks, if they come around this way, we should have enough length to reach the new bar length. Alright, so as you can see, I have most of the attachment, or most of the ancillaries, I think that's what they're called, reattached to the bike. Got clutch, left side controls, right side controls. So the biggest changes is now the throttle cables are behind the fork instead of coming around the front here. And then over here, the clutch cable and the choke cable also run behind. Although I think the choke cable might actually be long enough you could run it here, but since I was already running the clutch, I figured I might as well run this one here. Gives it a little more length and breathing room. The main wire bundles from the controls, they normally attach here, and then there's another zip tie under here. I had to eliminate that other zip tie, so after this point here, they're all loose until this zip tie here. So they're loose between those 2 points there. And that's just so that the bars can move without having too much of an issue. Now the last thing, which will delay me the most, is the Bikemaster cylinder, which, as you can see, is not long enough to reach that. This cable isn't. The cheapest solution is to get just a slightly longer rubber one here, but I figure if I'm doing that, I might as well do full braided steel lines all the way along. So, a couple days to have new ones made, and then this will work, which I'm very happy about, because when I first ran into these rubber grommets here, I didn't know if I was going to be able to make this work, but it seems to be going pretty well. I've gained, I think, about 2 inches of height, ish, 1 inch to 2 inches, but mostly I've gained about 3 inches in width from where it was before. One thing I'm doing is I'm actually removing the stock mirrors while I'm doing this. I don't know how many other Katana riders out there who don't like the stock mirrors. I find them to give me a great view of my shoulder, which isn't very helpful. So what I'm going to is these clip-on bar end mirrors that just clamp onto the end of your handlebar, like so. Then you get a mirror all the way out here. If you don't quite like that, you can turn them the other way, and then you get a mirror right above your right hand if you don't like, the width, people who lane split and whatnot. I know they are fairly, they really don't like wide bikes, and I totally understand why. Alright, so here we have the finished product. We have handlebars on the bike. So to give you an idea on how high these are, you back up a bit. That's about level with the bike. So I'm pretty happy with the results. I think they're probably about the right height, not too much lean forward, not too much lean back. I also really like these mirrors on the end. I think they really clean up the front of the bike, not having the mirrors on there. Although I'll have to do something about that spot right there on each side. Maybe get a piece of stainless cut out in that thing, in that size, and put it over top there, or a piece of painted metal, who knows. The only thing, if you're going to get these Bikemaster mirrors, get a bar end to stick on here, because I can actually twist them off if I want to. Just, wrench on them a little bit, and they'll come right off. Here's my brake line set up. I got one line coming off, which goes down, crosses over, and hatches there. And then I got one line, goes over to this side. One thing you should do if you're going to have these made, have this one bent at about a 45 angle that way, so that way you're not, you know, zip tying it to the triple tree or zip tying it to the fork like I did to make it not hit this as you turn the bars. The other thing, when you come down here, just have them put like a 10-degree angle on the top one, because as you can see, you can't put them right on top of the other. They have to be staggered, because this part here is thicker than the banjos. So bend this one up like a 10-degree angle would be all it would take to fix that problem. I'm not going to have it fixed because, frankly, I had them made. They're kind of pricey. I don't want to have them made again. It's not worth it. Next thing, I had to resort to cutting off this grip on the bike. So, new grips on both sides, but you don't have to. You could probably get it off. I just got impatient. But it did let me learn a new thing about getting grips on and off, and that is that it's really nice if you pull them inside out. Like pull it and wrap it inside out almost all the way. Then all you have to do with the new grip, stick it on the end and sort of unfold it or refold it right way out over top the handlebar. Saves a lot of time and effort rather than trying to slide the whole thing on. Also, WD-40 works really well to get these on. Some of you are thinking, oh, WD-40, well then they'll just be loose. But WD-40 evaporates over about a week. So, you know, you put the WD-40 on, you slide it on, wait about a week, and, you know, now it's solid. It doesn't twist at all. Oh, and if you like these grips, it's some sort of generic, I think they're called Sport Bike Pro Grip. Yeah, I'll get the box. Superbike Soft Touch Pro Grip. Looks to be, there you go, progrip.com. Sorry, it's out of focus. Yeah, progrip.com looks to be Italian of some kind. Yeah, so worked out pretty well. Haven't taken it for a ride yet, but I expect to be quite pleased with how this turned out.